All right. Hello, everybody out there in the internet universe. Welcome into our second regular season episode of the Preferred Walk-On show, a college football show about college football.
That is what we are.
Yes, I'm Dimitri Zamaris. Joining me, as always, today is Jeremy Taché from beautiful Miami, Florida.
Noted UCF mom, Jeremy Taché.
Yes, the hottest of UCF moms.
Yes.
Jeremy, we got to just jump right in, man. We got some games to review from week 2, and then we'll get into our week 3 preview. So let's start with, I'm not sure if you would call this the headliner of last week, but it was definitely one of the two with Texas A&M and Clemson.
Yeah.
Clemson obviously coming away with a victory in Death Valley. What was your takeaways from this game?
So my biggest takeaway is that Clemson is still Clemson, right? Right. I think some people thought that maybe there would be some weaknesses shown by Clemson early on in the season. They lost a lot on defense. And a team like Texas A&M with Kellen Mond, you and I both love Kellen Mond. I know Bill Connelly wrote in his preview piece for ESPN.com that Kellen Mond would be the most important player in college football this season.
Right.
But Clemson still looked like Clemson defensively. Trevor Lawrence is a remarkable football player. And I really believe that the way that that Clemson was able to just assert dominance from the moment of kickoff, it showed me, number one, that Clemson is still exactly, the same team they've been for the past few years, but it also showed me that A&M, with their crazy juggernaut schedule, probably won't come out alive. Like, I don't think that they're going to be able to beat any of those teams that are on that next caliber.
And I want to say that was I think that was my biggest takeaway, because you, at this point, you know what Clemson is, right? They're defensively, they're horrifying still, right? And they held A&M averaged 2 yards per carry, 27 carries for 53 rushing yards. That includes sacks, and there were quite a few sacks. Only gave up a touchdown. Kellen Mond was not comfortable the entire game.
Not at all.
The Clemson defense was just flying all over the place. A&M, to me, just lacks the playmakers that you see, because every team that's on like that upper tier of like actual championship competition, if you're talking about Bama, Georgia, LSU, Clemson, Ohio State,
they got them.
Oklahoma, even to a certain degree, they have good defense. They have, in most cases, great defenses with offenses that match with like extreme firepower, which is not something that we've seen in recent college football history. It's just sort of become that, where you have to have the explosive offense to go along with the dominant defense, right?
Right.
So they don't have enough on offense to keep up with some of the higher upper echelon. Like we're seeing now, Bama is one of the best offenses in the country. Clemson's got NFL players all over their offense. LSU now is just, and we're going to get to LSU next, their offense is clicking on all cylinders. And then at UGA, you have Jake Fromm and company. So,
it's this weird thing with everything that you mentioned there. We're really living in like the golden age of great college football teams. Like I can make the argument that teams like LSU and Georgia, who were like the 4th and 5th best teams in the country, if you just took those exact teams right now and put them in the early 2000s, they're winning national championship after national championship, and we're talking about them as some of the greatest teams of all time. After there have been no complete teams like this, other than, if we're going to be completely honest about it, that 2001 Miami team that was just loaded on offense and defense on both sides of the ball. But this
2004 USC even.
Right. Yeah.
And 05 Tech, and those were like 05 Texas too. Those were like the early iterations of what we're seeing now.
Exactly.
Where the concentration of talent is getting it like the best teams are getting the best players,
not just on
at a rate
anymore.
At a rate that is like, it's just almost, it's unfair.
Well, it used to be the defensive-minded coaches like Nick Saban, like Ed Orgeron, were just recruiting the best defensive players, and then they were winning games still because they were beating down those offenses. But now those two teams could arguably have the two best offenses in college football when it's all said and done. I mean, they're not, there's Oklahoma obviously and Clemson as well. But you see the point of what I'm saying, and I think this game just showed that Texas A&M, not yet. They're not yet.
They're still on that. They're still on that next tier,
next level. That
where
Washington and et cetera.
that's a perfect last thing on this though. Clemson's offense has been a little shaky considering like you would expect them to be scoring like 40, 50 points per game at this point.
I predicted they'd be the most efficient offense in the history of college football. So I was
right
there.
Lawrence has looked shaky at times. So they got to patch that up. ETN didn't have a great game, but then they got what was the L John or oh man, what was the kid's name? The running back.
I couldn't tell you.
Lynn J. Dixon.
There you go.
So I mean, when you get a guy like that, just step up and have 79 yards, 7.2 yards per carry, and a touchdown. Like that certainly helps. And that speaks to what we're talking about the concentration of talent, right?
Right. And that shows how good Clemson really is and how deep.
So I think to me, this was the headliner. We'll move on to our next game here. This was the headliner of last weekend. Might end up going down as the best game of the year.
It very well could be. It was outrageous.
Yeah, LSU Texas here. I think it's time we talk about Joe Burrow, man. He might be. Is he the Heisman frontrunner to you right now?
It's him or Jalen Hurts, right?
Consider the competition that Burrow has played against already.
Right? That's why. I mean, look, to me, it's Joe Burrow, but I don't want to like jump too quickly. But after 2 weeks, man, Joe Burrow, I'm happy for him, right? Like I have no rooting interest in LSU, and it's very rare that with a team that's sort of a perennial powerhouse, I won't, there's levels of powerhouse, right? But there's teams that every single
LSU's
year,
a traditional 10-win-a-year team.
Yeah, they're one of those teams. And so very rarely do you find yourself like, if you have no real rooting interest, sort of
rooting for one of the big dogs.
For one of those teams. And yet, because of Joe Burrow, I kind of find myself rooting for LSU, which is very strange. And I think the kid, it's such a cool story in that it's different than like Justin Fields and Tate Martell and some of these dudes that right off the bat transferred as quarterbacks. Joe Burrow did stick it out at Ohio State for a little while, learned under Urban Meyer and the rest of those guys over at Ohio State, and then transferred to LSU to get a chance to play and, play at a legitimately big level. And now it's like that perfect combination of like LSU finally has a competent quarterback and Joe Burrow got his chance to thrive. And a team that could win a lot of football games because good God, they are loaded at every other position. So if he just plays at this level the rest of the way, like
I can't understate how much I liked their hire of taking a guy from the Saints and bringing him on to be offensive coordinator, because you still have that Louisiana connection, right? He knows the area well. Right. And you can it's made such a difference. And if LSU has a good offense to go along with probably one of the most talented defenses in college football, we're talking about a team that is a legitimate now threat to Alabama and the SEC West. Right. The question to me in this game, Texas obviously is not done with just this loss because they have a chance to get 2 wins against Oklahoma. Yep. They could theoretically, Iowa State, if they win this week, will still be ranked when they play. Yeah. So they still have enough quality opponents on the schedule where you could convince yourself, like if they win out, they're still in the playoff hunt, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
The problem is their defense, right? And it became more apparent. It becomes a question of, is LSU's offense this good or is Texas's defense this bad, right? Because I don't think there's a question that Texas's offense is very good. Oh, yeah. Like Sam Ehlinger is one of the best quarterbacks in the country. And to be able to put up 38 points against LSU's defense was incredible.
Right. Sam Ehlinger probably actually had the more impressive performance than Joe Burrow in that way.
But so then the question, if you're Texas, is if we can't stop LSU, how are we going to stop Oklahoma twice theoretically?
Exactly.
And then that raises the question for LSU: if this is just a bad Texas defense, how's their offense going to look when they play unquestionable top-level defenses who they do have on their schedule with Florida, Auburn, and Alabama still on the horizon?
I think the good news for both teams, if you're looking to try to find the optimism, and it's funny that I did that because hook them, but the good news.
Don't do an upside down horn; they'll penalize the podcast.
The unsportsmanlike conduct. The good news for both teams. Sam Ehlinger is a legitimate star, and with that being said, LSU does have to face Tua, and Fromm and guys like that, but like they're not going to face quarterbacks that necessarily are going to play much better than Sam Ehlinger. Like they're not going to face offenses that are much better, and thus you feel really good because you still came out with a win even though you struggled against a great quarterback. And so you look at yourself and go, all right, our guy can go head to head with these guys. If you're Texas, you feel great because your offense didn't flinch. And Oklahoma's defense, while seemingly improved,
it's not LSU. Yeah.
And so the way you look at that, if you're trying to be optimistic as Texas, is, well, if we put up 38 against LSU, maybe we can just outscore Oklahoma. We're going to give up our points. I mean, that offense is better than LSU's offense, but maybe just one flinch from Jalen Hurts in Oklahoma and we steal a game, and now all of a sudden, we sort of control our own destiny. So if you're looking at it from the positive perspective for both teams, both of these teams are very much in the hunt. LSU, obviously, I think elevated themselves to the point where we should be talking about them in the same breath as Clemson and Alabama, in my mind. Because I don't think that Texas is a bad football team. I don't think that the people that are overreacting and like, oh, see, Texas isn't back. Like, Texas is a great football team, and Sam Ehlinger is a superstar. They just got outplayed by a team that was better, and that's okay.
That gives us a perfect transition then to our next game, because if you're a Texas fan, you're in a much better place than Michigan, right? Michigan is the most perplexing team in the country to me.
Wait, before we get there, let's give Meech some credit. In our onion hanger upset pick of the week last week, I picked Tulane over Auburn, which honestly was closer than I thought it would be in an 18-point loss. But Army legitimately should have beat Michigan, and that was the game that Meech picked, and we're going to get into it here, but I got to give this guy credit in that was a great upset pick. For all of the reasons that you stated, specifically Michigan hater and support those troops. Army, man. Army over Michigan. I mean, it was damn close.
Yeah, and so Michigan's still being ranked in the top 10. It's ridiculous for a couple of reasons. But I mean, if you're Texas, you have to figure you're a much better team than Michigan at this point, right?
Oh yeah.
And this is not to take anything away from Army. Army's going to probably end up winning 10 games this season, right?
Army could have really screwed over the college football playoff if they got this win. Because how do you vote against Army? The college football playoff has got to feel good that Army lost, because if
the college football playoff hates America.
Had to tell a literal undefeated Army no, it would have been the most anti-American thing that's ever happened.
Jeff Monken is legitimately coaching his ass off at Army. Because they mentioned analytics multiple times, in the booth. I don't know if you watched the game on Fox Network or Fox Sports 1, but Joe Klatt and Gus Johnson kept talking about how they refer to the analytics on 4th and 1s and stuff like that. But it is really interesting, to mold or mesh the analytics with the triple option.
It's bizarre.
It is kind of
awesome.
It's like a perfect marriage that you wouldn't really think about. So Army has a lot. It sucks that they lost this game. It sucks that they lost last year in overtime to Oklahoma. But it's obviously a team that's right on the cusp of being something. And I'm not gonna say they're not special already, because they are. Right.
They'll probably win 10 games.
But the biggest takeaway here is Michigan, right?
Hashtag
Jay Patterson might actually be terrible. He might actually be bad.
It's time to go to McCaffrey. It's time to
McCaffrey, and that's the thing though, is McCaffrey hasn't looked good when this offense. I mean, what was the Charbonnet rushed for 100 yards, but it took him 33 carries to get there. So they're not. Their offensive line was getting dominated by Army's defensive line. Army's defensive line was flying all over the place. Yeah. So if you're Michigan and you can't even handle Army up front, how are you going to handle Ohio State, who has Chase Young? How are you going to handle Iowa, who has AJ Espensa? How are you going to they play Wisconsin this weekend or next weekend? They're going to lose to Wisconsin.
You know what stinks though, is that Michigan has enough talent on the field, and I think is recruiting wise, maybe not with Wisconsin, but so far and ahead of the rest of the Big Ten, other than Ohio State,
right?
Even in
them and Penn State are on a tier right below Ohio State.
Even in not being that good, they could still end up winning all of those games, and they're going to give Ohio State their signature win, and they're going to make some New Year's Six game and get blown out. And we all know.
Or play Florida and win by a touchdown.
Right, and from week 2, we all know that they're not actually that good of a team. And
that's what this is setting up for, and because we can move on. This is setting up for the annual Michigan versus Florida bowl game.
Oh God, that we all dread and nobody likes to watch. Nobody,
and we get it every single goddamn year.
It's the worst thing in the world. I hate it so much.
All right, so moving on from a team that's terminally uninteresting, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about USC, man, because they got Graham Harrell, and that Kadon Slovis might be better than JT Daniels.
Everything about this game made me upset because, like, it was the one time that I convinced myself to root against a Graham Harrell offense, and then I should have known better. Because I wanted Stanford to win, and I should have just said I want
up for heartbreak there.
No matter what, I was going to be heartbroken because if Graham Harrell didn't thrive, I would have been upset. But Stanford losing obviously sucks as the UCF guy. Kadon Slovis looked great. And all that shows me actually is just not for whatever, but it is the Graham Harrell system. Like JT Daniels looked like a superstar week 1 until he got hurt. And Kadon Slovis, a 3-star recruit as a freshman, just shows up and is throwing dimes.
Can I say what's a huge benefit to the USC quarterbacks at this point?
What's that?
Outside of Clemson and Alabama, this is the most talented receiving group in the country. You could argue maybe LSU is up there as well.
It's all 5 stars. I mean, they're all studs.
They're just absolute animals, right? Uh-huh. Like you have Tyler Vaughns, you have Amon-Ra St. Brown, you have Michael Pittman Jr.
Yeah, they're animals, man.
So I mean, it's a legitimate group of studs playing, like, catching passes. It's gotten to the point now where the Pac-12 South race has become sneakily pretty interesting, right? Because you have USC, you have Arizona State, and then there's Utah. It could get a little frisky.
The USC Utah thing. I don't trust Arizona State to beat the better
Michigan
teams.
State. Yeah,
but I do think that USC and Utah is fascinating, right? Because it's strength on strength. Like, that's USC's offense against Utah's defense, and whenever that does come to be, that will be the interesting matchup. It's also like we're in this weird space where Clay Helton is, like, very much on the hot seat, and everyone sort of expects him to be fired.
And this is the best his team has looked since he's got there.
Right. That's the weird part. Is like, and because Lynn Swann left as the athletic director at USC. And so now that that's happened, everyone just assumes Helton's going to be fired. Is it going to be one of those weird situations where you have, like, this team rallying for their coach and they go and they, win a bunch of games they're not supposed to win, and somehow USC is the underdog? Like, what world are we living in where USC
what are we talking about?
is the underdog, right? What are we talking about here? But going to the Stanford side of it, I will say, while their defense was sort of embarrassed against USC, they gave up a ton of yards in the air to a true freshman.
377 yards, and he completed 28 of 33 passes.
Yeah, I mean, he absolutely dominated.
And guess who's on the horizon?
Right, true freshman Dylan Gabriel in UCF. And the thing that I will say is KJ Costello, the Stanford starting quarterback, who brings them so much stability, was not playing. If you do look back through that game, and I encourage you guys to do so if you are a nerd like myself, and I decided to do this, you'll see that a lot of USC scoring possessions were set up with just remarkable field position based off of the fact that Stanford's offense was not able to do anything. So USC won the field position battle all game long, putting the true freshman quarterback not in high-pressure situations, not in situations where Stanford could bring very much pressure, not in situations where they were leaving their corners out alone and bringing the pressure toward that quarterback, not in situations where they had to, go for 80-yard drives. It was a lot of, like, 50-yard drives, even 40-yard drives for a team that's loaded with stars on the outside, like you just mentioned, in terms of their receiving core. It put their quarterback in the perfect position to succeed. Stanford couldn't move the ball. If Stanford can move the ball, which with KJ Costello, they can, that puts the defense in a much better position to thrive. And thus, it's like literally the worst case scenario, because now Stanford's being looked at as this team that, is going to struggle maybe even to make a bowl game. This team that's not that
Right.
good, they're, oh, well, when they beat Northwestern 17-7, maybe Northwestern's just not very good. And look how they just got shown out by this team whose coach is on the hot seat. And, all of what Stanford has going on right now is everything that you hate to play Stanford with, especially if you're UCF, who needs this,
which we'll get to in our previews, right?
Right, but Stanford struggling, I think, it had so much more to do with KJ Costello being out than that team necessarily being overrated in the way that it's sort of being perceived.
I got you. All right, let's move on to a team that was definitely overrated heading into the season. By one of the co-hosts here, I'm not going to name names.
It was me.
Nebraska. Nebraska loses 34-31 to Colorado in overtime. The biggest takeaway to me here is, for all the talent that Adrian Martinez undeniably has,
he sucks.
His turnovers kill this team on a weekly basis.
It's exhausting. Adrian Martinez.
It's like the Mackenzie Milton fumbles back in his freshman year, right?
Right, but you thought that the step would be taken by Adrian
It's not
Martinez.
been taken.
It has not been taken. I so badly wanted Adrian Martinez to be good, and now I'm realizing I didn't, and it was all a lie. But because the more that he and Scott Frost in Nebraska are not good, the more I'm kind of having a little bit of joy with it. But
right.
I thought Adrian Martinez was going to take this giant step, and I feel bad for the kid, to be quite frank with you. There were a lot. We talked about this before. There's never been such crazy expectations that's been put on a true sophomore and a 4-8 team.
Right.
That's coming into a following season. Never. There cannot, in the history of college football, been a 4-8 team.
The results thus far have shown justifiably so.
Yeah, that this team was 4-8 for a reason, and I'm shocked by how underprepared they seem on both sides of the ball. That they're just being outplayed and outcoached.
Yep.
By Colorado.
They were, and so this is where, if you're in Nebraska, you have to be upset because you dominated the first half of this game.
Absolutely.
And you came away with only a 17-0 lead. You got to put in a rivalry game, and Scott Frost doesn't want to call Colorado a rival anymore because they're not in the same conference.
It's a rival.
But it's a rival. Like the Colorado players think it's a rival. They're in Colorado. The fans still consider Nebraska a rival.
Right.
It's a rivalry game. You have to put teams away in a rivalry game. And they left the door open, and Steven Montez, a senior quarterback for Colorado, had himself a nice second half in overtime.
Yep.
And they came out and won the game.
And that's going to feel really good for him. That's one of his probably signature wins of his college career. And that feels good, man. That feels good.
And this is without Chenault playing well at all. Like, Colorado has found a way to move the ball because defenses are accounting for Chenault, right? Mm-hmm. They're trying to game plan him out of the game. Yeah. And then Colorado, and to Mel Tucker's credit, has done a great job of finding other ways to move the ball. So if you're Colorado, you got to be feeling, if they can tune up the gaffes that they have on defense every once in a while, this could be a really good team.
This is not a bad football team.
And the Pac-12 North is wide open at this point.
It's so weird that Colorado's in the Pac-12.
Last thought for me on this, Nebraska fans, Maurice Washington was by far the best player on your entire team this weekend. So have fun living with that one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. You know what? Let's leave it there. Let's leave it right there. I got nothing else to say.
I mean, yeah, just, enjoy rooting for that guy.
Yeah. God. All right. Miami and Carolina. I wish I had the guts, man. I knew it. I said every reason why. If you go back to last week, I said every reason why North Carolina would win that game. And I just didn't have the guts to take Carolina. And
can I say something?
Everything I said was exactly what happened.
Can I say something?
Go for it.
It's very rare that a team puts up as many more yards as Miami did to North Carolina.
Yeah.
Holds the ball for as long as Miami did over North Carolina. Has as many first downs as Miami had over North Carolina. Didn't turn over the ball and still lost the game. Miami played about as well as Miami could play.
Right, and for that to be Miami and to do that is weird, because the reason Miami has lost.
You can't ask for a better performance than Jarren Williams had.
So let's actually just start right there then.
30 of 39, 309 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions.
Jarren Williams is a legitimate stud.
Yeah, he's good.
Jarren Williams is really good. And for Miami fans, that's the solace you can take. That said, Miami almost definitely won't make an ACC championship game now.
Oh no, it's looking less and less because Pitt is still better than Miami not Pitt. I'm sorry, Virginia.
Whoa. Yeah,
Virginia.
Whoa.
But if you're Miami, aren't you upset? Don't you think you're better than both the teams you've lost to already this year?
So that's the thing that I think is frustrating. And as you guys know, I work down here in Miami. I spent literally hours yesterday listening to sound from practice from the Miami Hurricanes. And Manny Diaz the day before actually said the same thing, like something to the effect of, we can be angry, frustrated, disappointed, and optimistic at the same time.
Right.
Because the way that he's looking at it is we're like 6 plays away from being 2-0 and ranked in the top 15. So
the question is here too, like think about it from Miami's perspective. Would you rather be Miami or Florida State at this point?
Oh, you definitely rather be Miami.
Without question.
It's not close. Yeah, it's not close. Florida State's like a literal national laughingstock. The thing for Miami and for North Carolina, for Miami, you're frustrated because you're 0-2 and it's another lost season. So while Manny Diaz can talk about the process and can talk about, it's a shame that we're judged based off our record and it should be about, the way that we actually played the football game, you are judged by your record. That at the end of the day, and
wins and losses are what matter.
And Manny Diaz, if he had just put his players in position to succeed on 4th and 17, is 1-1 and feeling really good, because Jarren Williams, if they win that football game and just get that one stop against North Carolina, you're feeling great because you're looking at the ACC and you're going, we're going to an ACC championship game. If they just win that game, they're feeling the confidence of, we're better than Virginia, we're this, we're that, whatever, we're the U, we're
better
back.
Than Wake, better than UNC.
Yeah. Now that you've lost that game to Carolina, Carolina controls its destiny because they have the tiebreaker. They've got the stud young quarterback with ice in his veins who was able to, beat you and make the big throws when it mattered. And so Carolina feels really, really good. And Miami just feels that same, it's the same shit they've been dealing with for a decade. And it's exhausting. But the difference for Miami fans that's got to be so frustrating in it is we have the quarterback. And we still couldn't get the win that we needed. And that's the part that's got to kill you. And
final thoughts here. North Carolina, Sam Howell, like you said, clutch, right?
Stud.
And as a true freshman, that's amazing. And being able to – I wouldn't say they got dominated throughout this game, but it was obvious that they were not the better team.
Right.
But to hang around and be able to make the plays when it matters and come out with the win is huge. Mm-hmm. And now it sets up a really interesting game for them on Friday. Yeah, it sets up a really interesting game for them on Friday, which we'll talk about when we get to our preview.
Right.
Let's jump in here to quick hitters. I'll go first. My first game, of course, I got to start with Oregon State and Hawaii here.
Of course.
Hawaii has 2 Pac-12 victories already this season, with a chance to get another this week against Washington. I'm not gonna say I'm picking Hawaii, but I might be picking Hawaii.
I guess we'll get that. We might get that later, huh?
Cole McDonald responded after a poor outing against Arizona, came out and just shredded Oregon State. Oregon State looked good in the first half, and then they just left their offense in the locker room after halftime.
There, yeah, it was bizarre.
But still like the direction Oregon State's going. But Hawaii Hive is thriving, and Nick Rolovich's Twitter is about to get spicy.
Oh yeah,
and that brings me to Cal versus Washington. Obviously. That one has to hurt if you're a Washington fan. Yeah. The game, I actually got to watch the entire second half of this game at Wesh while I was there at 2 a.m. because it ended at 4:30 Eastern time.
Right.
Cal's defense is legitimately terrifying, and now they have a ground game on offense to go with it, headed up by Chris Brown Jr. And Chase Gabbers can't really throw the ball as a quarterback, but he is dynamic, man. He's tough. He runs the ball hard, and he's kind of a perfect fit, like, for what this team wants to do.
Right, especially with their defense.
Right, and so now Cal's in a really good position, too, to win the Pac-12. The Pac-12 is so weird, right? And then awesome. A team that should be in the Pac-12 but isn't because they're just an independent for some reason, BYU. gets a huge win. I don't know if you saw those last couple drives against Tennessee, but it was clutch. It was a clutch performance. I'm glad they got the win because now they play USC this week. This actually feels like a very USC game to lose, to go beat Stanford big and then go to BYU and lose. So that's something to look out for. And Tennessee sucks. I'm sorry. Horrible. I have to admit it. I made a mistake. They're bad. When your coach is comparing your season to the Titanic in week 2, when your coach is comparing your season to the Titanic in week 2, things have gotten bad. Let's hear your quick hitters. Yeah. I know you're starting with Syracuse and Maryland.
Yeah, Syracuse and Maryland. So first of all, Maryland. Holy shit. Hello, Maryland.
Maryland is your brand of football, man.
Maryland is exactly what I am about. It's crazy. Josh Jackson got beat up by Miami a couple years ago and disappeared and reappeared with Maryland just being the sexy new.
The greatest quarterback of all time.
He's a superstar, and it's bizarre. This is less about Maryland, though, and more about the ACC, because the ACC is bad. Like, the ACC is not good. Like, straight up. UNC takes a step forward, right? Miami takes a step back. Virginia takes a step forward. Syracuse takes a huge step back. FSU is a freaking joke, and I think the ACC now all of a sudden looks like it is the 5th best conference.
It's Clemson and then a bunch of just dudes just running their heads into brick walls.
I mean, yeah, and think about it. Like, Georgia Tech is going to be a middle-of-the-road ACC team, and they, barely beat USF. And USF is horrible.
So let's slide on to one of your side-ho teams here with SMU.
Oh, SMU. Okay, how good is SMU? Because I think they're very good. I think SMU is –
I know you think that.
I think they are very good. I think that if they were able to – I mean, they really limited Mason Fine, who you and I both agree is one of the better quarterbacks in college football.
They play Cal this week too, by the way. Mason Fine versus Cal's defense.
Poor kid. I thought he was going to show out against SMU and still maybe take the L. But the thing that's most interesting is that, and this is one part of it, their S&P bowl chances after that game, they went from 51% chance of making a bowl to 94%, which showed that clearly the S&P really likes the way that they're playing. I'm just intrigued because Shane Buechele is obviously a talented quarterback who is going to put up crazy numbers all year long. Their most interesting game is not this week, but next week against TCU. And who knows, man? Like, I kind of think that they could go pull an upset with TCU. And so the big games are going to be, how can they fare on the road against Houston and Memphis? And if they got to play both of them on the road this year, unfortunately. But that SMU team is fun and fine and my brand of football once again. And so moving on to Ohio State and Cincinnati, good God, was I wrong about Cincinnati last week. I fully anticipated that defense could be able to sort of hang in there with Ohio State.
They were not.
Desmond Ridder.
Extreme narrator voice. They were not.
They were not. Desmond Ridder is exactly who I thought he was. I last week specifically said, well, I've been doing this thing where I'm grouping him with Brady White, and maybe I shouldn't be doing that anymore. I absolutely should have been doing that.
Narrator voice. You should have been doing that.
Exactly. I mean, they got annihilated. And maybe Michael Warren wasn't all that healthy. He only had 10 touches for 15 yards. That obviously affects you. But this was not close right from the very beginning. And all of that is to say that Justin Fields and J.K. Dobbins are going to compete to be the best quarterback running back duo in the country. I mean,
there's a lot of good ones.
There's some great ones. It's probably, I mean, you have to say it's Lawrence and Etienne.
Right.
But after that, like, Fields and Dobbins is a crazy duo. And
Rahm Swift is good.
Yeah, they're going to roll.
There's a couple interesting. No, but you're right. I do like how many there are. They're
going to roll through the Big Ten. Like, it's not going to, and they're going to annihilate Michigan, and they're going to go undefeated. Ohio State is going to go undefeated, and what I saw in the way that they beat Cincinnati, all it showed me is the college football playoff this year is going to be a shit show because that team's going to be undefeated. Oklahoma's probably going to be undefeated. You're going to have an SEC team, and what the hell happens after that?
You're going to have like 3 SEC teams that probably feel like they should be
that feel like they should be there because it's going to be like LSU beats Bama, but Bama wins the SEC, and Georgia does that, and it's like it's going to be a disaster. It's going to be a legitimate disaster, and Ohio State just proved to me they're not a team to be trifled with. So moving
All right,
on
let's
to the
move
news
in.
section.
Let's move into our news. So Bill Connelly is just probably the most gifted college football mind going right now.
This is the third time we've referenced him. We clearly love the guy.
He changed S&P Plus to SP Plus. I'm just going to keep calling it S&P Plus moving forward. So let's just dive in real quick. So these are notable S&P production changes after last week's games for teams to make bowls, right? So UNC has gone up from 26 to 82%.
Right.
That feels obvious. They only won 2 games last year, and they're one of 3 teams now this year that already has 2 Power 5 wins.
Right.
I mean, that's incredible. Maryland, as we mentioned, up from 27% to 79%, so looking good for it. And then here's the Meech one, right? Tennessee has fallen from 70% to 8% to make a bowl.
Yikes.
USF, who I know you have a special segment highlighted for later, has fallen from 73% to 14% after falling to 2-0 with a loss to Georgia Tech. And so here's some interesting ones. I'm going to save the one that you have listed here first for last because I think it's something worth noting.
Yeah.
Stanford down to 36% is pretty shocking. I still think they'll make a bowl.
They're definitely going to make a bowl game.
But I feel less confident about Nebraska at 40% now. I would take Stanford to make a bowl over Nebraska from what I've seen so far.
Even though Nebraska has the technical better chance, and I guess maybe the thought process is that their schedule's a little lighter.
Right.
Stanford is going to make a bowl game. Like they
Stanford
could very
feels
well
like a better team.
No, Stanford. Stanford is the better team. They were without their quarterback. Like they're going to come into UCF, and that's going to be a close game. Like that's a 7.5 spread, and I'd probably take Stanford on the line. Like,
all right, we'll save that because we have that in our preview as well.
No. But the point being, they're a competitive team.
So this one sticks out to me. Illinois is 57% now to make a bowl game.
Lovie Smith's beard.
The Fighting Lovie Smith beards, man. They're really out here.
I'm happy for Illinois.
Do you want to take back what you said about Michigan transfer Brandon Peters?
I do want to take back what I said.
He might be the best Michigan quarterback going right now.
He is competent. That I'll say.
Can you say that about Shea Patterson or Dylan McCaffrey?
I don't know if I can. I don't know. I thought I could.
And then this was good too. 11 game winners. So teams with chances to win 11 games. There's only 3 teams currently listed over 50%. Clemson, obviously, at 87%. Bama at 69%, which is nice.
Nice.
And then finally, and, say what you want, your UCF Knights, 54%.
Boom.
So we're really out here.
It's going to happen again. They're just going to go undefeated again, and they're not going to make a playoff, and they're just going to happen.
If they go undefeated 3 straight years in the regular season
and won't sniff it,
I don't care about playoff berths or anything. Like amazing. That is such a hard thing to do.
It's wild. And so just based off the S&P, I put a little graph in here. And I'm going to include it in what we're talking about. Like I'm going to cover this right now. So if you're looking at this graph, what it shows you is basically all of the different conferences and their S&P ratings. And so it shows that based off of the S&P ratings, the best conferences are SEC, Big 12, Big 10, Pac-12, ACC, AAC. But the thing that I noticed that I love here, look how bunched up. It's 4, 5, and 6 that are the most interesting, right? Because the Pac-12, which is just so bunched up that even their best teams that are all bunched together right at the top, little tiny gap, and then their worst teams that are still right there.
Yeah.
And the difference between that and the ACC, where hello Clemson, and then everybody else. Which is not, and really everybody else, which is a significant portion as a mean lower than the Pac-12, which is not something that a lot of people would have anticipated.
The ACC and the Big Ten are basically Ohio State and everybody else, and Clemson and everybody else.
Right.
Whereas in the other conferences, like in the SEC, it's like, it's Alabama, and then there's LSU and Georgia, and then there's everyone else.
Well, but look at the spread. Like, look at the way that they're spread out, right? Because the Big Ten is Ohio State, everybody else. The Pac-12 is everybody else. The ACC is Clemson, everybody else. Where if you look at the SEC, the Big Ten, it was the Big 12 was Oklahoma and everybody else, and then the Big 10 is just sort of a line in a row of everybody, and then the AAC is similar, where it's UCF, and then I presume that's Memphis next, and Houston, and all these teams that are lining up. And really, there's a few look at the majority of the AAC is right there with the ACC. If you take out the bottom three teams of the AAC, which includes UConn, man. Like, what an unfair thing to have to include. They're gone next year anyway. The UConn thing. But look at what that looks like right next to the ACC. It was really interesting to me to see the way that the S&P rating.
Pac-12 too, even if you kind of squint your eyes real hard.
Yeah, it's just interesting to me. And so now let's review our picks from last week.
Well, no, hold on. Last thing on the news. I just wanted to bring this up. The California law about allowing athletes. So athletes are now in California, like Division I athletes are now able to profit based off of sponsorships or like collaborations with companies. This has always, to me, felt like the most logical way to let players profit and not have the universities pay them directly.
Yep.
And it also gets rid of are you going to pay all the athletes or just football and basketball players? Because in this case, you're only going to pay them anyway.
Right.
And then, of course, the NCAA has a problem with it and is telling California their schools might not be eligible for NCAA championships.
Wouldn't that be hilarious?
Because, of course, they are, right?
Well, I think there's only a couple of logical solutions here. First of all, California legislator voted 72-0 on this. Like, this was not
and that was the second time they've had that vote where it was unanimous.
Right. This is not a contentious debate. Like, California is going to pass this law. Mm-hmm. And so what's going to be interesting is it's going to go one of two ways. And it's just going to take one group of guys. But what I was going to say is it goes one of two ways. Either if the NCAA does decide you can no longer be eligible for championships if your players are getting paid. Either.
Because it gives them an unfair recruiting advantage.
Right. So
because, living in Los Angeles and playing football isn't more appealing than playing in Nebraska anyway.
Well, right. So what I was going to say to that is either all of the players are going to flock to California or none of the players will. And I think it's more likely that all of them do. Because if you're telling me that I can get a full ride scholarship to a college, then I can get paid endorsements and I can live in LA and I can do that for 3 years and then I can go play in the NFL. Yeah, that's my number one choice. Yeah. That's my number one choice. Because basically, I get to live the Reggie Bush lifestyle, but I don't get punished for it.
Except they won't take my Heisman Trophy away.
Yeah, so I don't get to play in one bowl game. USC doesn't ever make the playoffs anyway.
And half these good players don't even play in the bowl games anymore anyway.
Right. This is what I'm saying. So I think the players are going to flock, and I think all it'll take, I actually think the biggest thing that'll happen, it'll take one group of guys like the Fab Five from Michigan a few years ago where a bunch of dudes come together and go, yeah, we're all going to USC, or yeah, we're all going to UCLA together. And it's a bunch of the top dudes that go out there, they get their endorsements, they don't give a shit about not playing in March Madness or anything else, and say, screw it, we're the best, we're going to go, and then we're all going to go in the first 10 picks anyway in the NBA draft. And that's all it's going to take to completely flip the whole thing on its head. I'm so excited for this.
Yeah, so it'll be interesting to see how that plays out. All right, let's get into our Saturday six-pack from last week. Jeremy, you struggled. Let's go through the games. Ohio State defeated Cincinnati. We both were right on that one. Clemson defeated Texas A&M. We both
right on that one? Because I'm pretty sure I said Cincinnati.
No, I'm pretty sure you picked Ohio State. No, you said I want to pick Cincinnati, but I'm going to go with Ohio State. I'm pretty sure.
All right. I'll give myself that one.
Then we had I had Colorado beating Nebraska, which happened. I had LSU beating Texas, which happened. Mm-hmm. We both got North Carolina defeating Miami incorrect. And I got USC beating Stanford. So I was 5-1 on the week. You were 2-4. But that just gives you a chance to bounce back this week.
Oh, yeah.
Let's get into our first game of the Saturday six-pack, UNC versus Wake Forest, which is happening Friday night.
UNC wins this game.
Okay.
UNC is legit. Like
on the road against Wake Forest.
Yeah, I know enough about Sam Howell. I think that these guys now they did get to play at home.
But do you know enough about Jamie Newman?
I don't know enough about Jamie Newman, but I know enough about Sam Howell. I think the big thing here also is that I will say North Carolina does have to go play on the road for the first time, and that will affect them. That will affect a freshman. But I mean, this team's now played in a couple of big games already. Like they played South Carolina and Miami. I don't think they're going to be phased by very much. Like going on the road, Wake Forest is not South Carolina or Miami. They're not. And so they're playing the least talented team that they've played, but they do have to go on the road. I just think that I've seen enough from Carolina and their playmakers to think that even if they end up struggling a little bit, they've got enough to be able to power through against a team like Wake Forest now.
So this might be the least talented team UNC has played so far, but this is the best coach team I think that they will have played so far.
That's fair.
David Clawson, the Claw Fence, as they call it at Wake, their offense is incredible. If their defense wasn't so bad, this would be a upper echelon ACC team.
Yeah.
I still think even with the struggles that they're going to have defensively throughout the rest of the year, I still really like this Wake team. Jamie Newman has been incredible through 2 games, although they played William and Mary last week.
Yeah.
I can't even recall the team that they played in week 1. But it's a Friday night. Friday night away games are always
hard.
Friday night conference games are super weird, especially in the ACC.
That's coming up for some teams we care about.
This figures to be a shootout, right? Because Wake's defense is so bad. I'm still not really sure what to think of UNC's defense at this point. I think I'm going to go Wake here.
Just for the fun of it.
Dude, I really, really enjoy Wake Forest. I think that's deeply college football of me. But so I'm going to go Wake. You have UNC, which brings us to our next game here. Stanford coming all the way across country to play our UCF Knights. I'm just going to start with this. Why'd you have to lose, Stanford? Why'd you have to take the luster off this game?
Why do you have to do it? It could have been a ranked
because
matchup.
Of course they did, right? Of course they had to lose the game right before they fly cross country.
It's the most UCF thing ever to have Stanford lose.
And you know what else is the most UCF thing ever? Is that even if KJ Costello plays, there's going to be that asterisk that he's not fully healthy.
Of course.
There's also going to be the asterisk of they're traveling across country.
Of course.
Right? Like literally as far possible as you could have traveled.
Isn't that the whole point of the home and home, sir?
Right. Exactly. Well, that's my thing, right?
Right.
If you're UCF, you have to be licking your chops after what USC did to Stanford last week.
Yeah. Yeah.
Where are you sitting on this? Because it seems to me that you've been trying to talk yourself into Stanford, and I just don't see it.
I am. I'm trying to talk myself into Stanford because I'm going to the game, and when Stanford inevitably takes the early 14-10 lead, I don't want to freak out. That's the biggest reason I'm trying to talk myself into it.
So it's for your own health.
It's for my own mental health, yes. I think the big thing for UCF is that they got to start fast again, right? Because they're a team that has been taking leads very, very quickly. That's what they do. And I think the thing that's going to be interesting, Dylan Gabriel got the start against FAU. He played, what was essentially the full game. They brought in Quandre Jones to basically mop things up late in the third, early fourth.
Is Quandre Jones going to transfer?
Quandre Jones is good.
I know. I just feel so bad for him because
I feel bad for him.
An afterthought.
Yeah, that kid's good. That's a good quarterback. I think UCF would still be highly competitive if Quandre Jones was their quarterback. But nonetheless, the weird situation that they're in is Brandon Wimbush didn't play because supposedly he wasn't healthy. I don't totally buy that. I think it was a little bit of an excuse
to let everyone get
to run. I'm an injury truther. But now what's interesting is Darryl Mack is healthy. And Darryl Mack is supposedly going to be let loose. So I don't know who's going to play quarterback for you.
Are they going to play 3 quarterbacks?
It's not impossible. I think the thing about Dylan Gabriel that I find fascinating, he was 7 of 19 for 250 yards and a couple of touchdowns. And a couple of things about those stats really quick, and I'm going to pick UCF, so you don't even have to ask. But Gabriel was 7 of 19. That doesn't sound good. That said, 9 or 10 of his throws were just deep shots. Your completion percentage is going to go down when half of your passes are deep balls. And it'll be interesting this week because Gabriel's accuracy on those deep balls has been remarkable. He's done a really good job of either it's getting to my receiver or it's going out of bounds. It's either uncatchable or it's being caught by my guy. And that's the thing that Gabriel does consistently well that Brandon Wimbush doesn't. Darryl Mack also does that consistently well. So if I'm going to say, are you going to go with one power guy and one finesse guy? I'd rather go Gabriel Mack than Gabriel Wimbush, to be
if Mack's going to play, I would prefer him to be the go-to guy because I think he offers you what both of them offer just in one quarterback.
In one guy. Yeah, but I'm afraid of starting and going with Mack in his first game against Stanford.
Right. Which is a fair thing to worry about.
Especially considering Dylan Gabriel has been the quarterback for 15 drives for UCF. 10 of them have ended in touchdowns.
Did you see the stat I tweeted out about his completions or something?
No.
He has like 14 completions on the year and has 6 touchdown passes.
Yeah, it's outrageous. So no matter what, I feel like UCF is going to have enough. Their playmakers are going to be enough. At home, it's going to be an insane crowd.
I got the Knights as well.
Yeah.
The Paulson Abeto versus Gabe Davis, Trey Nixon matchup is going to be fun, though.
It's going to be amazing.
Let's move on. Game 3 here, Maryland versus Temple. I'm including this for a couple of reasons. One, there's not a lot of good games this weekend.
Right.
2, Maryland is the highest scoring offense in the country, which is definitely something we both predicted coming into this season.
Obviously.
Josh Jackson and Anthony McFarland, we were talking about quarterback, running back, 1-2 punches. They're right up there, man. They've been incredible to start the year.
Yeah.
Jackson has been one of the best transfer QBs this season, even if you group him in with Hurts and Fields, and that's saying like a lot.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. It's weird to say that, but it's accurate.
But, and so this is where I throw a little water on the Maryland fire. This is a very Maryland game to lose.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to Temple, a team that is scrappy. I think that's the perfect word to describe Temple almost every year.
Scrappy.
Is they're scrappy.
Always.
So you're going to Temple. Anthony Russo has been playing extremely well since the second half of last season. Their defense is always good at Temple. Maryland has Penn State coming up next week. The AAC could really use this win with how bad Memphis and Cincinnati have looked.
Yeah.
It feels I kind of want to pick Temple here.
Oh God, everything you just set up describes the ultimate loss for Maryland, a team that we didn't anticipate being good, blowing a couple teams out early, get to be ranked, everybody's behind Maryland, and then they lose at Temple. I'm going to go Maryland just because I feel like such an idiot for picking Cincinnati last week, and
this isn't Ohio State Cincinnati. This is Maryland.
I'm well aware. I thought Cincinnati was good, and I love Anthony Russo, and Anthony Russo at home is going to show out against Maryland. Like, Maryland's going to give up a ton of points to Temple. I just think they're probably also going to outscore them. Like, it's going to feel, honestly.
Where do you stand on the Syracuse might just be very bad this year?
Oh, Syracuse is very bad this year. That's where I stand on it. Syracuse is not good.
I think that should
going to annihilate them. Well, yeah, and that's the garbage of when you go back to rankings in Power 5 and all of that.
That's why I'm not including any rankings on the show until after week 7.
Yeah, because that's the garbage of this. Maryland gets to be a top 20 team because
we should release a poll we should release our own top 25 every week starting like week 7.
We should release our own top 25 starting right now, and Michigan would be out of it.
Others receiving votes, not Michigan.
No. It should just be that. That should be all right. We're gonna do it. That's gonna be it. We're gonna put others receiving votes and just not Michigan, and that's it. All right. So that's it. I'm picking Maryland because I trust Josh Jackson. Josh Jackson. I'm so impressed with the way that he's played. And while the last time I saw him in a big road game, he got annihilated by like I mentioned earlier. This is not the Miami defense. Like, Temple is that. So I'm going.
And he's got better surrounding talent, surprisingly, at Maryland than he did at Virginia Tech.
Maryland's really good. So, like, in terms of
God, I'm trying to decide who I want to pick here.
Do it.
Oh man, I'm going Maryland. I'm sorry, I can't. My dad graduated from Maryland. I can't pick against the Terrapins. I'm a big Scott Van Pelt guy.
Ugh.
I really wanted to pick Temple, though. But let's move on to our fourth game of the 6-pack here. We're getting our buzz going. We're feeling feeling weird. And this is a weird matchup, right?
Yeah.
Arizona State versus Michigan.
Uh-huh.
Second year of their home and home. Arizona State, if you'll remember, last year won this game.
Mm-hmm.
Michigan's offense finally showed a pulse last week.
Sure.
But it was
Western
against
Michigan.
Western Michigan.
Yeah.
So the good news for Michigan State is their defense is a Michigan State defense. It's a top 10 defense in the country.
Yeah,
and they'll be playing against a true freshman quarterback whose only competition so far has been against Kent State and Sacramento State in Jaden Daniels. And he's been great in both of those games, don't get me wrong, but this is a whole different animal.
Yeah. That's where I'm at when it comes to this game, is that while Arizona State's looked very good and I'm very impressed with his play, Michigan State is something else defensively. And it's hard for me to believe. It's just hard for me to process the terms. Arizona State beats Michigan State twice in a home and home. Like,
I was going to say, do we really want to live in a world where Herm Edwards is a better college football coach than Mike D'Antoni?
I won't live in that world, and thus I'm going to pick Michigan State. Like, I just refuse to live in that world. I just refuse to do it.
So I have made a mockery of Herm Edwards on the internet
constantly.
Even before he was at Arizona. I would just roast him when he was on ESPN.
You did.
Proved me wrong last year. Michigan State's offense is so terrible.
You don't think they can win 14-10?
They could, but if Arizona State scores 20 points, I think the game is over.
So you're taking Arizona State?
I'm taking Arizona State.
All right.
I don't have much to go on because it's not like Jaden Daniels was incredible his first week against Kent State. But it's like you said, it's Kent State. It's a completely different animal. There's really nothing that I'm basing this on other than I think Arizona State's offense is good enough to score maybe 21 points or so.
Right.
And I think their defense is good enough that it's not Western Michigan. Right. And I just something about Michigan State it's just
black. Yeah, no, that's fair. I'm only picking them because I just can't live in this world of Herm Edwards beating Mark D'Antoni twice. I just can't do it. I just won't. I won't do it. I refuse.
No, I refuse to do it. Will not stand for it.
I will not stand for this blasphemy.
So I'm going Arizona State. I don't feel great about it. Don't get me wrong. But I'm going Sun Devils.
So thus far we've split on 2 of these games because you weren't a man enough to take Temple.
I was not. I was very, very not man enough to take Temple.
All right.
Despite all of the Temple gassing I did to start off that preview.
It's literally how it started.
We're cracking open another a cold one here. This is the game day.
Getting Purdy.
Yeah, this is the Purdy Hive out and about, ready for the game day to be there this week. El Astico, as they call it on the college football interwebs. I think that started with SB Nation College Football, which is now Banner Society.
Right.
But they started calling it El Astico a couple years ago, and it's the perfect way to describe this rivalry.
Yep. These are 2 teams that are ass. No, I'm kidding.
They used to be.
It's not anymore. Look, how is Nate Stanley and Brock Purdy like a fun QB matchup? Like, how did that happen?
Agree with that statement?
Like, how did that happen? Because it is. It's a fun QB matchup. Like, it's fun.
Iowa having a fun quarterback is weird.
It's
it hurts
very weird. Well, no, and that's the thing that's strange to me. I just like. I don't even know what to think of Iowa State is my problem. Because
they had that game against Northern Iowa, right? But then they got the bye week to figure themselves out.
I thought very specifically that I thought I knew exactly what Iowa State was going.
You're having like an existential crisis.
Because I'm already dreading having to make a decision here. I thought that I knew exactly what Iowa State was. And then they looked the way that they did against Northern Iowa, and I went, "What the fuck is this?" But I thought there were a few things that I thought I knew about this college football season, and I thought that Iowa State was one of the teams that, you know how you know a ton about all of the top teams?
They were going to be like an upper middle class team.
I thought I knew what they were going to be, and I don't know. And so now, if they are what I thought they were supposed to be, then they should beat Iowa at home. They should. But Iowa's good, and And if Iowa just plays the way Iowa always plays, we're going to end up with, the typical like, oh my God, is Iowa good? And then they'll lose all the games that they're supposed to lose, and it'll happen again. But like Iowa almost every year climbs into like the top 15 every year. And then they lose, Wisconsin.
Kirk Ferentz is the most consistent.
He's it's remarkable how consistent he is.
Truly consistent he's honestly goals, right? Just be as average as humanly possible every year and keep getting paid. Like they keep extending his contract and giving him more money.
Because how good is Iowa ever supposed to be? Look, all of this is to say, this is at Iowa State.
Yep.
They will have an insane crowd. And it's the first time game day's ever been there.
Yep.
Which I've seen firsthand absolutely changes an environment. I was at College game day and went to the game when it was Miami against Notre Dame. I was at College game day and went to the game when it was UCF against Cincinnati. And I've been to games for both teams where it wasn't College game day, and it did not feel like that.
It's a different energy.
It changes thing, and when it's a rivalry game like that, and you got a guy named
out the record book.
Brock Purdy at the helm, I'm going Iowa State, even though I don't know what in God's name they are.
So this is going to surprise you because I am a Brock Purdy stan. I'm going Iowa.
I hate you.
I just know because it's exactly for what you said.
Yeah.
I just know what Iowa is.
I know what they are, and I don't know what Iowa State is. But I'm giving Iowa State.
And you know what, Jeremy? Sometimes in life, there's comfort in going with what you know.
All right. Yeah, of course. But this is why I'm just giving them the game day bump. That's all it is. Game day bump gives about 4 points.
Like tonight, for example. Like normally I eat chicken most nights, right? Tonight I'm trying fish. I'm not sure I'm going to like it. But, I'm going with Iowa.
That doesn't make any sense.
Shut up.
It's the opposite of what you said. If you went, whatever. Anyway, game 6. I can't do this. We've had too many of this 6-pack. This 6-pack has got us really going.
So this is how you know there wasn't a lot of good games to choose from because we're including Florida State versus at Virginia this week here. Virginia's going to win this game by a lot.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, Virginia's like way better of a football team, huh?
It's strange. This is a funny matchup because Virginia is probably like, and like we speak a lot in hyperbole on this show just because that's how we do things.
What we're supposed to do.
But Virginia is one of the most consistent teams, like drive to drive, game to game, play to play in the country.
Yeah.
FSU, on the other hand,
doesn't make them good, by the way. That just makes them consistent. That's not saying they're one of the best teams.
Iowa East.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. Virginia is Iowa East.
But
wow, that's phenomenal. Yeah, exactly.
But FSU is like on the complete opposite side of that spectrum.
Yeah.
Where I don't know, like you said, you don't know what Iowa State is. I have no fucking clue what I'm going to get from Florida State from play to play. Like, it could be a 75 – like James Blackman could throw a 75-yard pass to Tamarion Terry, who gets tackled at the 2-yard line, and the next snap goes over Blackman's head. It's a 35-yard loss.
I saw a play on Twitter. I didn't watch very much of that game against Louisiana Monroe, right? Louisiana Monroe?
Yep.
There was a play where it was like – Blackman rolled out, but his offensive lineman didn't know that the play was that he was supposed to roll out. So
I know exactly.
All 5 of them are just standing there, and he ends up getting picked off, like because he got annihilated, and the ball just flew in the air, and everyone's standing around, and it's one of the most unorganized, chaotic things I've ever seen. The only thing that gives Florida State some hope here is the first half against Boise, right? Because the first half against Boise, Florida State looked like a world beaters.
Right.
And if
their defense needs to come ready to tackle.
Right.
Which they haven't been.
No.
What's so strange to me is because Florida State was up like 28-7 on ULM Monroe, and they left the door open.
How does that happen to Louisiana Monroe? Like, I don't get it.
No, and can they close the game, right?
And they're remarkably talented. Like, Florida State could easily still take a big lead in this game, too. They've done it twice before now. But the things that you're mentioning, I mean, like, this is the situation where instead of there is no bump here for Florida State like I just gave to Iowa State. Virginia's at home, and they're consistent as hell, and they're just the better football team. Like, Virginia should win this game by multiple touchdowns. Right? I mean,
I agree.
It feels like the inevitable.
What'll be interesting is seeing Florida State as like a true road underdog.
Yeah.
Like, how do they respond to that? Especially because there's people like us all over the country picking them to lose big.
Right.
And they're the more talented team. Like, I'm sorry. Florida State has a very talented roster. What's the problem? The biggest problem is Virginia's pass rush is very good.
Yeah, they're going to struggle.
Florida State's offensive line is still very, very ass.
It's very, very not good.
So to recap here before we move on to our quick segments, you have UNC over Wake. I have chosen Wake on Friday night.
Yep.
We both have UCF beating Stanford. We both have Maryland beating Temple because I'm a coward.
Yep.
You have Michigan State beating Arizona State. I have Arizona State going on the road and beating Michigan State. Herm Edwards Hive forever. Obviously, I've been on that bandwagon from the beginning.
Obviously, it's clear.
You went with Iowa State. I went with Iowa in El Asico. And then we both have Virginia beating Florida State.
Correct.
We will keep tallying our records as the season goes by. I'm excited to see what we finish up at. I think it'll be interesting.
Yeah, I think what I'm going to do is I will make a Saturday morning, or actually I guess I'll do this Friday. I'll make a Twitter thread of our picks from last week and what they ended up being, and we'll just keep it as a thread, maybe even pinned at the top of our page.
Okay.
Follow us, by the way, at We Prefer Walk-Ons. We made a Twitter page, so follow us there.
And like our Facebook page, you heathen.
Yeah. Yes. You watching this right now. All right, let's do this, our quick segment, and then get out of here. So why don't you start with your Grown Man of the Week award?
Joe Dirt, baby. Joe Burrow, 31 of 39, 471 yards, 4 touchdowns, and an interception against number 9 ranked Texas.
And Joe Burrow is literally a grown man. Like, he's like 45 years old. So
he might be married with 3 children at this point.
Pretty sure he is. I picked Rondale Moore. I could have gone with Elijah Sindelar, as he was 34.
Who has a concussion, is going to miss this week's game.
Yeah, and this is for Purdue, obviously. He was 34 of 52 for 509 yards, 5 touchdowns and a pick. He was remarkable, but a lot of that came because of Rondale Moore, who had 13 catches for 220 yards and a touchdown in Purdue's win. It was a big win for them, and he just came out and dominated the way that we all expect him to. I mean, Rondale Moore is one of the best receivers in college football. So.
All right. This is a new segment that we didn't have last week, the Haterade Hate Minute of the Week. I've decided that I didn't have anything filled in here, but I decided I'm going to hate with you on USF.
Yeah, let's just do that together.
Yeah. They're dead, right?
Yep. USF died. That's what happened. Look, USF lost 2 Power 5 games, right? Like, they could still very well come back and win a bunch of AAC games. But Georgia Tech is not very good. And they're like fine, and Wisconsin is fine. They're better than Georgia Tech, obviously, but they're fine. And USF has just been dominated from day one. They are second to last in both scoring offense and total offense. They're averaging 5 points per game. 5.
Hey, that's you. When you get a chance to get 4-time transfer quarterback Blake Barnett in, you don't pass that up, Jeremy. He produces 5 points per game.
Dude, what happened?
Yeah, they're averaging less points per game than like a 15th man on an NBA rotation.
Oh my God, they are Drew Gooden. Like,
yeah,
they're Drew Gooden. It's. I'm just so like.
Their run defense is awful too, by the way.
Oh, it's horrific. Yeah, their run defense.
They're going to play a lot of teams that run the ball well. They have to play UCF. How many yards is UCF going to run for on USF this year? 400?
300, 400. UCF already has 4 100. Well, I'll get there. Never mind.
Yeah. All right. So onion hanging upset picks of the week. What do you got, Jim?
My big upset pick of the week this week is going to end the Pac-12's chances of getting to the college football playoff.
Don't disrespect Cal like that.
Oregon has lost. Oregon has lost. Stanford has lost. Washington has lost. And this week, Houston, the darling of the AAC, is going to go in at home on a Friday night and beat Washington State. Washington State goes
It's
down.
in Houston?
I think it's in Houston. In Houston on a Friday.
That's weird.
Yeah. That's going to be a weird game. Talk about weird.
Speaking of weird, too, since we're talking about Washington State, have you seen Mike Leach's Twitter the last couple weeks?
Yes, bizarre.
He's gone completely off the rails.
Yeah, he's a complete insane person. All right.
But he's got a beautiful mind.
Yeah, he does.
I will say Anthony Gordon has gone for over 500 yards basically both weeks for Washington, or well over 400 yards both weeks.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's licking his chops getting ready to play this Houston defense, but I don't hate the upset pick because Washington State has not played.
And Washington State is not Oklahoma. Like, they're not Oklahoma.
Right.
It's that simple.
So sticking with the fun offense trend, I got Hawaii beating Washington.
Of course Of course
bro, what if we live in a world where Hawaii has 3 Pac-12 wins to start off their season?
I want so badly, and it's a shame Army couldn't go undefeated too, but you know how bad I want both Hawaii and UCF to go undefeated this year? And just to screw with people. And Boise, for that matter. Like, have all of them go undefeated and just see what happens. Because Hawaii and Boise play each other this year?
Huh?
I don't think Hawaii and Boise play each other this year.
Let me check. But if Hawaii does end up beating Washington, I put the chances pretty low, but their offense is explosive and their defense has been scrappy enough just to like fuck with other teams.
Get the job done. Yeah.
And Washington just kind of looked disjointed, and playing Cal's defense will do that to you. But I think it's very possible that Hawaii sneaks this one off. But if Hawaii does end up winning, Nick Rolovich's Twitter is going to go off the chain, so I need it to happen.
Yeah. No, that's the big part of all of this. That's what we all want.
Imagine Hawaii being the best team in the Pac-12 in 2019.
Who would have thunk it? All right, Houston over Washington State and Hawaii over Washington.
The Apple Cup's going to look real sad this year if that ends up
happening. All right, and now the most college football thing you saw this weekend.
Obviously, it was Colorado getting that 98-yard flea flicker on Nebraska.
Incredible.
That's about as college football as it gets,
Yeah.
I mean, who in their right goddamn mind calls a flea flicker from their own end zone?
It's incredible. But that's college football for you, man. That's
fucking insanity is what it is.
What you just said, who in their right mind? College football's right mind. Like, that's why college football is so much better than professional football. Like, I don't know why anyone, the elitists out there, they're like, oh, but I'm watching more skilled players. Shut up. It's not as fun. This is all entertainment at the end of the day. Enjoy yourself.
Right.
Watch college football. I don't care that it's not always as good. I'll have a hell of a better time watching SMU in North Texas than I will watching the Bengals and the Seahawks. Get out of here with that. Come on.
To answer your question real quick from earlier, Hawaii does play Boise State in week 7.
Is that going to be a game day ranked matchup if Hawaii
It's in Idaho. So if
Hawaii beats Washington, that's going to be college game day in Idaho.
Yeah, 100%.
Awesome. I can't wait. Oh, I can't wait. That's going to be – we should go.
And they also play Army. They end the season at home against Army.
It's going to be a blizzard. Hawaii is going to have to go play in a blizzard while trying to maintain an undefeated season in, like, November. Oh, my God, I can't wait. All right. That's going to be the most college football thing. But the most college football thing I saw this weekend was great. So Ohio State's punter, Drew Krishman, was named the Big 12 Special Team Player of the Week.
I saw this. This was hilarious.
Okay. So he was named Special Teams Player of the Week. Iowa fans responded to the tweet from the Big Ten, just obliterating the Big Ten because they wanted Rutgers punter Adam Korsak to be named the Big Ten Special Teams Player of the Week. Why? Because the man averaged 46.5 net yards per attempt on 10 punts. He had 5 punts that landed inside the 10, 4 that landed inside the 5-yard line. Now, Rutgers lost 30-0, but it would have been a complete disaster against Iowa if this man didn't have the leg from God.
Yeah,
and
no, he was
not
literally
only that, he had a 69-yard punt. I mean, this guy.
Did you see?
Such a nice week.
Did you see the highlight reel clips of the punts from that game?
It was incredible.
It was literally erotic. I'm not like.
Yeah, no, I don't get turned on by punts very often. But when I
do.
do, it's off the leg of Adam Korsak.
Yeah.
I was mind blown by the fact that Iowa fans, it's not Rutgers fans, not Rutgers fans.
It was hilarious. The Iowa fans,
all Iowa fans who were like, "What are you guys talking about? This guy's a star."
The Iowa fans set the mentions on fire.
It was crazy. You should see the way.
Drew Chrisman, he had a great game. He only punted it 3 times.
Yeah.
This kid punted. Korsak punted it 10
times and it averaged 46 net yards.
Bro,
it was incredible.
To down 4 of those within the 5-yard line.
It was remarkable. It just
goes to show you, man, that there's a lot of injustice in this world.
It's a rigged system. The last thing that I would like to do, because I forgot that I was changing my grown man of the week, and this is the perfect way to wrap up because I want to talk about UCF one more time before we go. UCF now in 2 games has 4 different 100-yard rushers. Listen to that again. UCF in 2 games has 4 different 100-yard rushers, including against FAU, mostly in garbage time, Bentavious Thompson.
Dude, he's a beast.
The reason I bring this up is because he might end up being the best UCF running back since Kevin Smith. This kid is a stud. And he's built like an animal. And the reason I brought all of this up is because I want to resurface this photo, put it up on the screen right now. So there you go. In the middle there, Latavius Murray, and then going, former UCF running back now with the Saints. To the right, I believe it goes Adrian Killins, Greg McCrae, Latavius Murray in the middle, Otis Anderson. And to the left there is Bentavious Thompson.
I remember when that picture came out.
Goddamn beast.
I remember when that picture came out, I sent it in our group chat of our friends from Hitting the Field.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know who the guy on the left is with the dreadlocks, but why isn't he starting?
Right? And he's just built like a beast. So that is the moment where he just ran for 100 yards. It gives me a chance to literally refer to him as the grown man that he is, a true sophomore at UCF. Bentavious Thompson.
And we can end it here. This is my last question to you. Is Adrian Killins the 4th best running back on the UCF roster?